Hey guys, Donald Trump Jr. here. I hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for joining us here at Premier Collectibles. I think you're going to have an awesome time on the live stream. We're going to try to get to a bunch of your questions. I'm here with Charlie Kirk, very good friend of mine, leader of the young conservative movement in America, doing some amazing things. And Charlie has just been with me basically since I got into politics. Somewhat by chance, and he's been doing some incredible things. And so what we wanted to do was make sure we talk about one of the major issues of our time, what's going on in our universities, both from an indoctrination standpoint, from a value proposition standpoint, or candidly, from a lack thereof. You know, Charlie is someone who's living what he preaches. I mean, he did not go to college. He's doing incredible things. And rather than coming out of an indoctrination camp being saddled with $500,000 in debt with a degree in underwater basket weaving that will never pay back, he went out there and did some great things fighting for all of the things that we believe in. I think you guys will get a lot out of this. I think you guys will get even more really out of the book, The College Scam. Obviously, you can order your autographed copy right here at premiercollectibles.com/college scam. Check it out. I think it's going to be a definitive work. And I think it's a work that even a few years ago, people would have greatly criticized. Now, I'm sure those on the left will actually do it. But the reality is their arguments for college these days for so many people are really going to fall short. It's not an obligation. You're not better off doing it. And I guess with that, what I'll do is kick it over to Charlie. He can talk a little bit about the book, how this all started. I have the honor of actually helping publish his book because that's how crazy the world has gone. The reality is that so many people would try to dilute it in the publishing world because, they're so far on the other side. We had to take a stand. So I think we're all actually going all in to make sure that the other side of these arguments is actually heard these days. And no one better, no one more at the tip of the spear than Charlie Kirk. So, Charlie, congratulations on your book. I look forward to hearing about it, even though I've been intimately involved from moment one.
Well, thank you, Don. That's awesome. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Don, as you know, this is a topic that we've been talking about since I first met you, about why are so many kids going to college? What is the value proposition? And as you said, there really isn't one. And what's been interesting in doing the research for this book is finding out how bad it actually is. I knew it at kind of a gut level. Our instincts, were like, man, this doesn't seem right. And kind of similar to, President Trump, who just had an instinct about something. And then the deeper you dive into it, you realize that there is this massive amount of data that supports the argument that kids are getting ripped off, how bad the indoctrination centers have really become. And so, you and I started talking about this book a couple of years ago, as far as making a book about it and kind of working together and all of that. And then it took us a while and took me a while because of compiling all the different forms of research. So in the back of the book, there's actually 35 pages of footnotes. It's very, very deep and rich as far as all the citations. And that's intentional. And Don, you know this because all of our critics are going to say, oh, you're just doing this to get headlines. College is a scam. It's like, no, actually, we go through in phenomenal detail and depth, the student loan crisis, of the cost of college, of how kids are getting misled by college recruiters and so on and so forth. And so we summarize that all together. But the book is written in, I would say, a rather unique way because it's almost as if I am the prosecutor and the reader is the jury. And so we are trying to convince the jury of, hey, this is a scam. So it goes through a 10-count indictment. And basically, some of the biggest arguments are, of course, it's too expensive. It makes kids go into debt. It makes them, believe all these awful ideas. But a deeper level, though, we talk about the foreign infiltration on these campuses. We talk about the violence against conservatives. And by the end of the book, I think we make a very persuasive argument. Don, in every book, you try to have a goal. This book, I really went about trying to convince people. Some books you do it to try to rally the base. And, the MAGA doctrine, I think I wrote that book more to kind of articulate something more than try to persuade people. Mm-hmm. This is a book to try to convince you of something. Because honestly, some people might believe it and they believe part of it, but they don't know all the different aspects of it. And so, kind of just some of the chapters here, the 10 counts is that college universities are running a scam, just bluntly. College education is ridiculously overpriced. Universities have become obscenely rich at taxpayer and student expense. And that's important, is the taxpayer role in this. Most people don't realize how our taxpayer dollars are going towards funding these incredible indoctrination centers. Count 4, colleges do not educate anymore. Colleges ruin the ability to think and reason. Colleges indoctrinate students and repress speech. College universities breed violence and hate. College universities have been infiltrated by subversive foreign groups. College universities have unleashed waves of woke anti-American activists, and many professors are leftist radicals bent on indoctrinating students. So that's just part of it right there. It's the most detailed thing I've ever put together as far as footnotes and kind of how the research is compiled. And so that's just the short summary of it.
Well, Charlie, are you saying that spending $60,000 a year to do a class on Harry Styles isn't money well spent? I mean, you don't think someone's going to not graduate and not make like six figures with knowledge of Harry Styles and his career? I mean, some of the course load that I see right now that people can literally go in and fill up a liberal arts degree with has literally zero value. Beyond being a waste of time. And again, maybe there's nothing wrong with some education or learning about a topic you're passionate about, but certainly not at the expense of debt that is insurmountable. And I think that's an interesting component of this. I remember even during 2016, Bernie Sanders, why would interest rates for college loans be more expensive than a home? And I'm like, well, the fact that a senator couldn't understand the concept of collateral, meaning you have a loan, you're not taking someone's liver, right? It's not that they can't understand. That only shows how little college actually teaches you. You can have a master's degree in something and go out and not understand anything fundamentally about the real world or basic finances or this. And you see that course load. You see, the gender studies degree. The people who are complaining about college and the people who are really, oppressed ultimately by some of these higher, learning degrees, they're never like the computer science majors or the electrical engineering ones. They're always these degrees that we would have joked 20 years ago that that's even a degree, right? And today, it's very much so.
Yeah, and so part of what we do in the book is we actually name some of these courses and classes. For example, at Harvard, you could take a course such as Languaging and the Latinx Identities, or Chocolate Culture and the Politics of Food. I don't know, Don, I might like that course. The Politics of Food? That sounds interesting. How about this one? Tufts University, Demystifying the Hipster. That's a course you pay for at Tufts. Or at University of South Carolina, Lady Gaga and the Sociology of Fame. Or at UW-Madison, a course called Elvish, a study of the fictional language in Lord of the Rings. You pay for this. You go into debt to go study Elvish. Or at Occidental College in LA, they offer a course called The Phallus, in the Department of Critical Theory and Social Justice. The college describes the course, quote, as feminist and queer taking-ons of the phallus, involving such topics as, quote, the meaning of the phallus, phallologocentrism, the lesbian phallus, the Jewish phallus, the Latino phallus, and the relation of the phallus and feminism.
It sounds kind of racist. I don't hear anything about the African-American phallus, Charlie. That's, I mean, if they're going to be all social justice, I mean, they should be all in. This is nonsense that I can call that out right off the bat. But
that's right. Oh, this one. You'll love this one, Don. From University of Pennsylvania, they have a course called Wasting Time on the Internet. That's a course that you pen, your alma mater.
Yes, so, I'm very proud of my alma mater these days, especially with their swim team and at first when the whole swimming thing and the trans swimming thing, Leah Thomas, whatever his name was, her name was, I can't misgender. When that started, I figured, maybe this is the Wharton School of Finance. This is their business school coming up with an arbitrage opportunity on how to win in swimming. So I was a little bit impressed at first, and then I realized, no, it's just social justice nonsense, and run amok. And it wasn't an arbitrage business opportunity. It was just lunacy. So I stopped being so impressed. But Charlie, we have some great questions from people who want to learn a little bit about you, probably follow you
Let's
throughout
do
the
that.
maybe some people that are new that are just interested in this topic because they see how far it's gone and how ridiculous it's gone. So, Dennis from Bastrop, Texas, asks, "Were you always a conservative, Charlie?"
So I'm going to sign this book to Dennis, right? And so people can do that at premiercollectibles.com/college and get your book signed. So, I was always a conservative. I will be honest, though, I early in 12 and 13, 14, and this is something that, President Trump and you, Don, had a profound impact on me. I was probably overly committed to like free trade and the immigration thing. I wasn't probably as strong on. And like Trump really changed my perspective. So I was always conservative, but it was a different kind of perspective on it, if you will.
You were basically a rhino conservative without even knowing it.
That's not true. I was not a rhino, but I was misguided on trade and immigration. And now obviously I've been enlightened. But Don, this is one of the reasons is that there were no one in the party that was being taken seriously saying these things, right? And it took an outsider like you and like your father to say it. So
yeah, no, and I think Joe Biden, the one thing Joe's been right about is that this isn't your father's Republican Party anymore.
Yes, that's
and
right.
I think a lot of that Republican Party was that way because they didn't fundamentally understand how badly we were actually being taken advantage of, how much perhaps those policies, benefited, the ultra rich, the Koch brothers, as opposed to, Joe the plumber.
That's right.
And so I think, MAGA conservatism is different. It's probably what it was always in the minds of, the working class Republicans, but it never translated because the powers that be made sure that wouldn't happen. And so, it is definitely a different form of conservatism, a lot of a similar tenets, but you're right about, obviously trade and immigration and what those do to hardworking Americans. America first conservatism is different. And I think that's why so many more people are able to understand it and buy into it. And perhaps why, the donor class will do what they can to kind of revolt against that because, they liked it better the other way because they could hire factory workers for next to nothing and they'd be making billions while the American middle class was totally left behind.
That's right. That's well said.
Okay, so Jackson from Minnesota asks, what inspired you to write the book now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think COVID actually played a big role in this, Don, where, COVID was awful and terrible. But one of the only good things that came out of COVID is I think it challenged all the orthodoxies when it came to education. I mean, we saw it with school boards. We saw it with parents being like, wait a second, what are you learning? It was this massive curriculum transparency project, basically. And, I know, Don, you have some personal, stories around this. But when it came to college, I was, wait a second, the colleges exposed their scam, Don, because they were like, okay, we're going to not adjust your tuition at all. And you get to take all your classes online. Huh. And then I was like, wait.
Kids at home in kindergarten that were zooming in for, 45 minutes a day where parents were actually hearing what their teachers were saying and say, wait. Like, that's not the written curriculum. I didn't realize there was an hour a day of a subversive trans curriculum going on, the only class that had no homework so parents wouldn't find it out. So I think what started off as perhaps, one of the biggest scams of all time in terms of media, meaning the teachers union, you realize how much they're in charge, but they wanted to not work. They wanted to not go to school. They also wanted to not do it by Zoom, and they still wanted to get paid 100%. Right. I think the Democrats in charge allowed that to happen, but it opened sort of, let's call it the kimono, for everyone to see what was really going on. And I imagine they still muted some of it, but they couldn't hide all of the insanity. And when parents said, wait a minute, this is what my kids are learning, I think it was one of the great self-owns of all time because they tried to have all of those things, but couldn't suppress their actual feelings enough to not totally alert parents and alarm them as to what's actually been going on. And obviously in college, it's probably worse. But I think what we all saw was just how bad it was at every level. Kindergarten through elementary school. We couldn't believe, what our kids were learning or being, stuck in their heads. And so I think the timing of that was perfect because we finally saw just how bad it was. It was sort of like when I got into politics. I figured, there was a little bit of a liberal slant in media. Like, whoa. Like I was always a conservative as well, but like I figured, okay, there's a little slant, but there's got to be there are reporters, they want to report that no, like no interest whatsoever.
That's right.
And it's the same thing. Yeah, there's a little bit of a liberal slant in education. No, it's so much worse. It's literally like just part of the foundation of converting these kids to communism. And that cell phone probably set them back more than anything because people finally got it.
Yeah, that's well said.
So Hannah from Michigan asks, what's your biggest takeaway in terms of for readers to gain?
A couple things. I actually make my mission very clear in the book. I want to decrease college enrollment. And I know that's radical to say out loud, but I think we got way too many kids going to college. 40% of kids that enroll in college drop out. 40%. It's extraordinary. And so then also I want to destigmify kind of what it means to not go to college. I don't think people that don't go to college should be treated differently. I think, and they are right now. People are like, why do you mean to go to college? I don't get it. And we have to try to crush them. And that's consistent with the kind of America First movement, if you think about it, right? It's the welders, it's the truckers, it's the electricians, it's the carpenters. Why should we look down at these people, right? That Hillary called them deplorables because deep down she said, well, they didn't go to Oberlin or whatever college she went to like I did, or Wellesley is where she went. She didn't go to Wellesley like I did. And so I would love to, with this book, move the Overton window in a place where people are comfortable saying, I didn't go to college, and I'm proud of that.
So Lindsay from Ohio asks, would you consider yourself more of a Republican or more of a libertarian?
Definitely more of a conservative than both. I'm really upset at the Republican Party. I don't even register as a Republican, right? Not at all. And I mean, the Republican establishment, I think, is terrible. And I mean, I think that President Trump is just kind of, he's a Republican because it's this party that fits him best. And I mean, he's at war with the Republican establishment every single day, especially on issues of international war and, immigration and trade.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that 100%. I think, I think what I always say is the most impressive part of Trump's accomplishments is that not only did he do it against unprecedented hate and division from the Democrats and the media, which you expect, but he did it with just the most subversive Republican Party imaginable, because they've never had consequences to actually losing and not getting anything done. And so, I think you're right. I'm neither, though. Maybe I probably have a little bit more libertarian leanings than you do in some respects. I'm just 100% America First conservative.
Yes,
and it's almost its own third party at this point. And I think it probably encompasses the majority of the non-establishment conservative movement.
That's right.
Okay, so Colton from North Carolina when was your first TPUSA event and what led you to do it?
First one was way back in 12 and 13. I think 6 people showed up, and half of them were related to me. So it was a good turnout. But yeah, I mean, look, that was like the first event. But Don, you remember our events? We used to have them in like side rooms of hotels, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it was like 200, 300 people. And they're a little bit bigger now. So
yeah, listen, when I got on the stage the other day and just, in front of, 5,000 plus, screaming, young conservatives, it was just incredible. And like, literally, I've seen that just get bigger and bigger and bigger every year, and it's absolutely awesome to see. And I will say, those guys they're the young, they're actually the political rebels of this day.
Yes.
Blindly following your 15 colored hair, teacher, mimicking the 9,726 genders, that doesn't make you a rebel anymore. Actually standing up to that nonsense does. And so these kids are actually the counterculture, which is just really cool to see.
I totally agree.
Okay, so Calvin from Florida asks, if you had to send your child to a university right now, which one would it be and why?
Probably Hillsdale College. I write about it in the book. Hillsdale's wonderful. They're super conservative and just fabulous. And I've got to know them really well. Besides that, there aren't that many great schools. I mean, Liberty's good and there's a couple others, but honestly, have just gone way past the point of redemption.
Yeah, and it's sort of hard to believe. Like, again, I've always been a conservative, growing up in New York as a developer. Like, I probably kept more of my political beliefs to myself. Now I understand, like, you just can't do that anymore. You got to be out there, otherwise it's gone. But, I graduated from Penn, which is, again, with the Leah Thomas School, and you brought up one of the examples in your book of the insanity of what they're teaching as curriculum. But like I graduated in 2000, which, feels like a long time ago, I guess, but not really. Not, now maybe it's just I don't want to acknowledge how old I've gotten. But, I guess there was some, probably liberal leanings on campus, but people didn't wear their politics on their sleeves. It wasn't really a topic of conversation. Every kid wasn't some sort of activist for some ridiculous cause that no one can understand. Like, you could go about weeks on end and never even hear about it. So it feels, what's scary about it is just how radicalized everything has become in 2 decades, right? My kids aren't even of high school age, or my daughter's just going into high school now. So in one generation, not even, you can literally go from, I don't want to say apolitical, but barely political. Like, my dad spoke on Penn's campus about politics, back then, and was welcomed and, applauded. And, that wouldn't happen today.
No.
While I was there. So in that short a period of time, it's gone from apolitical to absolute radicalization. And that's something scary. That's what we should be aware of, because if that can happen in 20 years, just given sort of the slippery slope and how far that, curve has gone, what's going to happen in 5 years, in 10 years, in another 20 years? I mean, will you learn anything beyond what they try to, cram into your heads? So let's see. David from California asks, how did you meet your wife? Any advice to someone looking for a godly marriage?
Met my wife through a mutual friend, actually, here in New York. We actually went back to the restaurant. I went back to the restaurant last night. Yeah, I tell people all the time, get involved in a church and ask the pastor, say you're looking for a wife or a husband. Pastors are great at setting people up. And so we have a big pastors event coming up in a couple weeks at Turning Point USA. So that's my advice. And just get out there too. And no one likes anyone that's always complaining. So be a positive person.
Yeah, and knowing Erica like I do, Charlie, you owe your pastor big time, okay?
Because that's right. I'm way underqualified for this deal.
That's way outkicked your coverage. No offense,
that's
you're
right.
Great. But okay, Conrad from Texas asks, how do you stay afloat? What keeps you going when life gets tough? Critics are loud, and you are just flat out tired. How do you keep going during all of that stuff? Because I get it.
Yeah, I mean, look, Don, actually, something I've been meaning to talk to you about is kind of the need for retreat. And it's something that I'm trying to do, like turn the phone off, going into nature and just enjoying it. In fact, I just read a book all about someone hunting in the Alaskan wilderness for 4 weeks. And I was like, just thought of you the whole time. It's called Comfort Crisis. I don't know if you've read the book.
I haven't, but I'm going to have to check it out.
Oh, it just feels like it's like the Don Jr. like hunting manifesto. And it's beautiful the way he puts it. But honestly, like, I've become a bigger and bigger believer in like managing my screen time and like staying away from my phone, like trying to limit it to an hour and a half a day, which is really hard for me. Right.
By the way, like mine's like 9.5 hours a day, especially, because I can work from wherever and my screen time is insane. So yes, I got to do that too.
And it's helped me a ton. And then just kind of, just keeping at your own pace. But, the attacks sometimes get to you. You just try. I mean, I'd be lying if it's like, oh no, they don't bother me. I mean, what bothers me the most is people that used to be friends with that then attack me. That's what kills me.
I have that a lot, from my experience in 16, just again, I think everyone knew I was a conservative. I was shooting every weekend, all my friends. The worst thing was watching guys text me.
Yes.
Like, directly text me and be like, hey man, I love what you're doing. That's awesome. Someone needed to say this stuff. Great job. Keep up the good work. And then they'd go on Facebook and play to the crowd and be like, this is terrible. It's disgusting. And so, politics for me was kind of cathartic that way. But to the point about time management, yeah, maybe I got a couple of years on you, but I'm actually pretty good about being able to just, get away, get off the grid, go to a place where, phones don't even work, and just do it. And that's always hard, right? It's never easy. But I've been in so many instances where, you cancel that trip of a lifetime to close a deal and nothing happens.
Yep.
Right. The deal doesn't. You just got to make the time and get out there and do it.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider running for office?
No. I mean, not right now. Who knows? I mean, I love what I get to do. Don, it's so funny. We host that big event, SAS, and all these politicians are there, senators. They come to me and they're telling me how miserable it is in Washington, D.C. I'm like, why would anyone want to do this? I mean, they're complaining to me the entire time, right? Literally the entire time. And so not right now. I love what I get to do.
Well, for me, it's the same thing. People have, pushed me pretty hard on that. I'm like, I think I can actually move the needle more not being in office, supporting 25 people a cycle who are actually going to, get the stuff done, in those votes. And, I feel like I can do a lot more that way as well.
Great.
Okay, so what's the biggest, Lydia from PA asks, what's the biggest pinch me moment in your career so far?
Biggest, honestly, being on Air Force One. Like, it was awesome going to the White House and all that, but actually being on Air Force One, that's pretty epic. Like, that was unbelievable.
Very nice. So Lucas from Utah asks, what are your thoughts on Bill Gates being one of the largest farmland owners in America?
Should be illegal. When someone like him, who's done so much damage to our country, wants to go buy up farmland, it's not like as if he's a big lover of the agrarian lifestyle, right? By the way, Bill Gates couldn't, the guy's ridiculously out of shape despite being worth $120 billion. He's doing it for control and I think a hedge against a currency collapse.
Yeah, at least Bezos is on TRT or something like that because he went from skinny nerd to like Jack. I mean,
I respect the Bezos Jack thing. Yeah, exactly.
So, well, Charlie, they're telling me I got to wrap up. I want to thank all of you guys that tuned in. Don't forget, get your autographed copy at premiercollectibles.com/collegescam. Read the book, get it to your friends, buy it for your friends, especially those with kids maybe going into college. Just understand the proposition, understand the decline of the value proposition. College, degrees have cost exponentially more, and the money you make coming out of them exponentially less. There's got to be a reason for that, and there's got to be some pushback. And I think, like all things, like the America First movement, if we all start asking these questions, holding these institutions and our representatives accountable for how they let so much of it get away, because, again, the taxpayer-funded component of this is grossly underrated and understated, I think we can do a lot. So thank you all for tuning in. Charlie, congratulations again. Great work. And if you have anything that you want to wrap it up with.
Nope, just check it out at premiercollectibles.com/collegescam. And we're going to sell a bunch of copies. I'm not signing a lot, but I will sign them if you guys do that. So it's a really great offer. Thank you, Don. It's a great book. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks.
Check it out, and we will see you soon.
Hey, this is John Acuff, New York Times best-selling author of 7 books and someone who's done a live signing. If you like the one you just watched, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. It's full of amazing authors having great conversations and signing books for viewers just like you. So make sure you subscribe, and thanks for watching today.